We're now going to talk about the various methods to block undesirable malware, ads, malvertisement, phishing links, and tracking methods by using HTTP filtering and script blocking. HTTP filters not only help protect your privacy and security, they also speed up your browser by reducing the amount of extra, crap, I guess you can call it, sites are trying to force you to download. We've already covered what Firefox comes with natively, like the Google Safe Browsing and tracking protection from disconnect.me, but for fuller protection we need more, and that's what we're going to discuss in the rest of this section. We're going to go through a number of security and privacy extensions or add-ins for Firefox, but don't go all crazy installing them all on your live environment as I talk about them. The more extensions you have, the more CPU and memory usage for the browser. And very importantly, the extensions and plugins you have can make your browser more unique and fingerprint it for easier tracking. Install any extensions in a test V environment first, or a Firefox profile as we've previously discussed. This way you can test them out, these extensions, without causing problems for your browser that you use day to day. The first plugin that I recommend is uBlock Origin. Note this is called uBlock Origin, not uBlock. That is actually a different extension, so it's uBlock Origin that you're after. I recommend this for everyone to use, no matter what your level of skill. It can be left as default, which is pretty good, or you can enable the advanced features and really start to filter the web traffic. And this is what it looks like here. Pretty simple layout. This is the non-advanced view. More on the GUI in a second. First, who's behind uBlock Origin? uBlock Origin is not controlled by corporate money, but by voluntary development. This is very important because whenever money is involved, what gets blocked can get affected. This is the manifesto. The user decides what web content is acceptable or not in their browser. The uBlock project does not support AdBlock Plus, Acceptable Ad Manifesto, because the Acceptable Ads marketing campaign is really the business plan for a for-profit entity. Users are best placed to know what is or is not acceptable to them. uBlock's sole purpose is to give users the means to enforce their own choices. Other alternatives to uBlock Origin have less of an open manifesto, and a few of them are developed by corporations where they have money interests. Think of it as a HTTP firewall that blocks undesirable content based on a set of rules. It's free and open source and is light on memory and CPU usage compared to others. But the more filters that you add, the higher the memory usage. So let me show you how it works. Let's go to Forbes.com. And you can see here the number increasing. And so far 31 objects have been blocked, or 15% of the site has been blocked. And this button here can be used for enabling and disabling it on the site. So you can disable uBlock for the whole Forbes site, or I can press Control and click and just disable it and enable it for the page. This here is the logger, which shows every request, and you can see where it's blocked, the various domains and URLs and scripts based on the filters and on other rules that it can have set. You'll want to enable the advanced mode, which you do by going to the dashboard and clicking here, I'm an advanced user. And then you'll see when you click on here, you now get this as well. And as you can see now, it breaks down what has been blocked and what has not been blocked. Have this ticked here, prevent web RTC, because that's a possible way of getting your real IP address if you're behind a VPN or Tor or hiding your IP in some way. And here's the third-party filters. These are the external lists of bad domains and URLs. You can update these, you can auto-update them, and you select which one of these you want to add. We'll talk more about which ones you will and won't add in a little bit, but the more you add, the more memory it uses. But uBlock is very efficient on memory. If you want to check out how much memory it is actually using, then you can use about:memory. And you can check out how much memory it's using and maybe add or remove filters based on how resource hungry it starts to become. But as I said, uBlock Origin is pretty good for resource usage. You've got My Filters. Here you can put in your own personal filters. And if you want to know the syntax for that, you can look here. It shows you what the various syntax is for it. My Rules. When you make changes to the GUI here, which I'm going to show you in a second, it adds rules to here, and there's the full documentation on the syntax for that here. And then there's a whitelisting, which is a list of domains that you've chose for uBlock to be disabled when you're on. Again, when you make changes to the GUI, it makes changes to this. This diagram here shows you how it goes through those filters. So you can see the URL comes in here. It looks at the whitelist, then the URL filtering rules, and the advanced user mode, local dynamic filtering rules, global dynamic filtering rules, static filtering, and it'll either filter or not filter based on those. Back to Forbes, let's look at using the GUI. So if we click on here, this column here, as it says here, these are global rules. Rules that apply to all sites. So if you see here, we've got images. If I was to click here, that would block the loading of images on all sites. And if I'm to press here, it's going to block the loading of images just for Forbes. I need to save it, and then I can refresh it. And we can see it's blocked all of the images, and we can see here we've got 199 objects have been blocked. So I can enable that again, save it. And what this is doing here is we've got a global rule that is blocking this domain here. Let's block another domain globally. Save that. So that's Amazon Ad System. And then we can have a look here. And you can see AmazonAdSystem.com is blocked, and so is 2mdn.net. Whenever you make changes to the GUI, it adds it to here. Let's enable those again. Save. Refresh the page. And you can see here some pluses and some minuses. The minuses mean it's been blocked. Something has been blocked. The more minuses you have, more things have been blocked. And with the pluses, it means things have been allowed. And the more pluses you have, the more things have been allowed. So these two pluses here means between 10 and 99 network requests were allowed. And the 1 plus means that between 1 and 9 was allowed. And with the minus, between 1 and 9 was blocked. And as you can see here, we can block everything, which would be here. Enable everything. We can block images, everything that's third party, inline scripts, first party scripts, third party scripts, third party frames. So if I enable that, refresh. And you can see the colors here. The color indicates what requests were blocked. So if it's red, that's everything. If it's green, everything was allowed. And if it's yellow, some things were blocked, some things were allowed. For further guidance on dynamic filtering and using the GUI, you can check out this link here. And this goes into more detail as to how this is used. So you might be wondering, what is it that you want to select? What would be best to configure for privacy and security? Well, uBlock Origin provides some guidance on that. It has its very easy, medium, hard, and nightmare modes. Very easy is simply using the uBlock filters and easy list. So if we look here, that would mean just selecting the uBlock filters, not including the experimental, and this easy list here. Then on easy mode, which is what it's set to out of the box when you install it, would be uBlock filters and adding some more filters here, including the malware filters, which I do recommend that you add. These are the malware filters. Now, easy mode is probably the best balance of defense and usability if you're not going to go into really configuring it. And a step up from easy mode would be to add a couple of things. So here is one example, and that is removing third-party frames, removing iframes. Iframes are used to embed malware for browser hacks. And here below is a list of previous examples where iframes have been used, third-party iframes have been used to drop malware. In fact, I used an iframe myself on the phishing attack demo video. So you would select this here. You will find that some sites won't work because a few, maybe 1 in 20 or so, does have a third-party frame, sometimes for videos. But just open here and see whether or not there's any problems with third-party frames. If you've got anything red blocked, and then you'll know whether or not the site should have a third-party frame on there. Something else you can do is block specific ubiquitous third-party sites that do lots of tracking that you don't want to track you, like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and anyone else that you aren't interested in. So you can see here, Facebook has been selected. So you'd effectively, click here. If this was Facebook, click here, save, and then all of the other ones that you don't want, save, and that would stop all of those individual domains from tracking you at all. Completely stopped from tracking you. So that was easy mode with a couple of extras added. Then you can take it to medium mode, which builds upon what we've just gone through. So you're globally blocking third-party scripts and third-party frames, and that would look like this. That's medium mode. And then there's hard mode, where you're building upon it again. You're blocking third parties globally, which would look like this. And that's about as far as you'd want to go. There is something called nightmare mode, and that's essentially blocking everything but the main document. But really, if you're going to do that, there are better tools to use like uMatrix because it's more granular. Obviously, the more things that you block, then it's more likely that sites won't work. So you want to check the logs and logging to see what is being blocked, because you will get sites that don't work for some reason. So you need to remember to check uBlock to see whether that might be the cause of it. But it's a highly effective tool at protecting you in terms of privacy and security. And the longer you use it, the longer you can customize it so that you can block all of the sites that you don't want tracking you, like Google or Twitter, and you can enable the sites that you do use and you do trust. At the same time, you have all of those filters to block ads that you don't want, or potential malvertisement and bad URLs, phishing URLs. So it's highly recommended that you spend a little bit of time tweaking it, and you have a great tool there for protecting you online.